tell me about what has been exciting for you lately in just in general. What's been going on in your world that you're like, man, I'm sparked about this right now. It doesn't even have to be music related if it's not.
Man, I think everything I'm excited about is music related always.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
totally agree.
so I mean, it's been just totally nuts. One thing that I've really been excited about is like inside of all the orders that I pack and everything, I always like handwrite a note. And I
Yeah,
started that out because I guess I had imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? I felt like I want to do something to differentiate between like Amazon and me. So I was like, hey,
yeah,
I'm a real person. Thanks for like buying from a real person. Um,
yes,
and then, as things progressed and everything, that started taking up more and more time. I had more and more orders, so that was nice. But um, I was like, man, I don't know. That's really kind of cutting it. I don't know if there's really any value in this anymore. I don't know if anybody even reads what I write because at first I would write like, I had like maybe one order every now and then and that kind of thing. I'd write like, this is the most meaningful album in the world to me, and this song, and
yeah, yeah,
I'd write like a paragraph, and then I got to like, hey, this is rad, you're rad, thanks. But
yeah,
anyway, so I thought to myself, like, "Ah, that's probably taking up a lot of time. I think I'll do away with that. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody really cares. Um, but it just so happened that one day I didn't, I didn't write a letter for like, the orders that night. And then I went online and I had just set up like reviews through my site, and all of the reviews had mentioned like he even wrote a handwritten note. So something as stupid as that,
yeah,
I was like, you know what? That's awesome. Um,
yeah.
and once that's been going for a couple of months with the reviews, and I've only ever had 5 stars. So like that right there, I'm pretty jazzed about.
Absolutely, man. Well,
People
it's something
people
to
are
be
into it.
happy about. I think that a lot of people let customer service kind of be set aside.
Yeah.
They're consumed in the process of building a business, which is understandable. You're in that same boat, so it can consume you, and you're
Oh
thinking,
yeah.
I got to get through this. I got to get to the next thing, and especially if you get to a point where you're like, man, I got all of these records I got to pack. It kind of slowly for a second gets to where the last package is the goal and not the one that you're holding,
Hmm.
and remembering that whether it's $1 record or $100 record, whatever's in that box is not for you to judge. The person purchased it,
Hmm.
and that makes it valuable to them. Of whatever, it could be a family heirloom that was lost, who knows,
Yeah.
and they're acquiring it again, or it could just be a funny gag gift that they're getting for a friend. But
Right.
that's what your focus should be at the time. And like all those handwritten notes, an acquaintance of mine that's in the vinyl community, she does the handwritten notes,
Hmm.
and I just think it's great, man. I think it's great that you do that. And I also think it's great that you're excited about doing it. And, whether you keep doing it or not, I just want to say that I applaud the effort. My handwriting, if I was to say, hey, John, thanks for the record, you would probably get it and be like, hey, Bobby, thanks for the note. I don't know what it says, but it's cool.
Well, I thought it was funny. One person at some point on Facebook or something like that, that I know, like now, he's a repeat customer. He said something about like he referenced my scribbles. Like, yeah, that's about right
Yeah.
because I can barely read what the hell
Yeah.
I write half the time I do. So I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
funny.
There was a situation. I didn't realize this was happening until long after it had already taken its course. I used to sign invoices all the time at
Hmm.
work. So it became, hey, I need your first and last name. And I would just scribble it all the time. So it was first, last name, and date. First, last name, and date. Sometimes if they're delivering a bunch of things, you might have 10 all at once that you're just signing back to back. Well, that turned into B and a little mountain range, and then an R, and then a couple little scribbles here, and then make sure the date's legible so they can put it in their computers or do whatever they do.
Yeah.
And I even had dispatchers at one point call me and be like, "What's your last name? I just wanted to make sure that it matches with this." Well, now when I sign documents, sometimes I catch myself and I'll unconsciously be just scribbling, and
Yeah.
in my mind I'm thinking it's my name, but my hand is just doing the scribble. And sometimes I actually have to stop and like scrape it out and rewrite my name depending on what the documents are. It's like, man, I gotta actually stop and write my name.
Yeah, I know.
And
Like,
that it's just a terrible habit.
whenever I buy anything with a credit card, which is everything, you go and they're like, "Yeah, can you just sign here?" And it's just like just a line or something. Sometimes I'll draw a smiley face or Donald
Yeah.
Duck or whatever. Um, yeah, I think, man, it's crazy because up until really the last couple years, I don't think I wrote anything like pen to paper for like 8 years straight.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of forgot how to write. I wish that wasn't on a recording, but you know what I mean? Like it's everything's so digital now. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it does take its course. And speaking of digitals, like the digital signatures, like
Hmm.
you go to restaurants or something now, they have the card swiper, and they'll turn the computer over and have you sign or
Hmm.
something. At that point, you're just kind of like, doodle, doodle, doodle. It
Right.
doesn't matter what you write.
It's my squiggle.
Yeah, and for the small handheld ones, trying to write anything on that, it just looks like, even if you take it slow, it still looks like digital dots and stuff. So
Oh yeah, just
yeah.
total garbage.
So that's cool, man. I'm glad that I'm glad to know that you would do something like that, because it, from what I know of you, it fits your character. Because when you're like, hey man, let's get together and hang out, we'll go somewhere
Hmm.
where you're, and I appreciate this very much. And when I, you know, can't do it, it's not that I don't want to, but you're always
Hmm.
very inviting, like, hey man, let's get together and let's go have lunch or do whatever. And I really appreciate that about you. So the handwritten notes really doesn't surprise me, but I think it's cool that you do
And what's? Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, you're a lovely guy, Bobby. Elusive but lovely. Uh,
that.
yeah. For anybody watching
That's
and
going to be
listening,
my next tagline: elusive but lovely.
I can't wait to see what you put to go along with that on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
Your
that's my.
t-shirt,
I'm going to start handwriting notes now. That's what it's going to be. It's going to just say elusive but.
I love it. Your t-shirts are awesome, by the way. I know I've
Thank you.
told you this, but let the record state, all your designs are just super rad. I have people ask me all the time when I wear my Monuments in Ruin shirt. They're like, "What the hell is that?" I was like, "It's just the raddest podcast. You have to check it out to understand. It's
Thank
just
you,
super
man.
sick."
Yeah, thank
You
you
know,
so much. Go
absolutely.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, this whole thing has been such a crazy journey as far as um, trying to figure out what to do. Like I'm sitting at my kitchen table right now, and just looking around. I'm surrounded by records and packaging stuff. It's like my whole house is just taken over. So I do this mail order only. I don't have a shop or anything, and I just live in like a two-bedroom duplex. So they ain't room to run a business out of here, but we make it work all right. Um,
Yeah.
but one of the things that I am looking at and I thought of was like I probably do too much, because like I said, I write the little handwritten notes. But I ordered I ordered some stuff from Asian Man Records out of California,
Okay.
and so Mike Park, he's a huge influenced me as far as certainly business model and how to do something like super DIY. Um, he's been doing stuff out of I think it's his grandmother's garage or his mom's garage or something like that for 20, 30 years. I don't know, a long time. And I met him when I did merch for him when his band opened for Alkaline Trio a handful of years ago, and he's just like the raddest dude, just super down to earth. But I ordered an LP from him earlier this year, and I borrowed one of his tactics, which was when I thought about phasing out the notes. I was like, well, I want to put something in there. For me now, it just feels weird to just throw some records in and like send it out. How do they know I even love them? You know what I mean? I don't know. I probably. I'm sorry. I see. I've had therapy on my laptop before too, so I'm sorry. I got those wires crossed. I'll save that one for that other uh, video chat. But
Yeah, get on the couch. This is going
but
somewhere.
one thing that I was super impressed with and I thought was cool was inside of the order that I got from him was just like this tiny little 3 by 3 piece of paper that was obviously Xerox, made a million copies of and cut out. And it just said, like, hey, we're one person. Thanks. This came from my mom's garage or whatever. So I wound up
Yeah.
like throwing something together kind of like that too. And like,
Nice.
here's a quick little couple of sentences and then, but then I didn't even phase out the signature. So now that's something else to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just keeps getting more
Yeah.
and more.
Man, I love when I'm packing records, specifically if you know who they're going to, you start to see the same names over and over. Of
Yeah.
course, it's always great to see a new name, a new location, something new, because then you're like, oh man, I know exactly what I'm sending them. They don't have one of these. They don't have one of these. They
Yep.
don't have one of these.
Yep.
And I love the, like you mentioned, the shirts. Well, all of those T-shirt designs I've got stickers of, and all those
Hmm.
stickers. I kind of look in the list when an order comes through, and it'll be either their first order or their fifth order. I have a small batch of stickers that are specific, like, oh, this is first order stickers. This is
Yeah.
second order stickers. This is third. And after about 4 or 5, you just start winding up with random things like, here's a CD I've got. This has to go in there. Here's a
Hmm.
flyer for a show. Here's the whatever. So, but I love putting something together with it that says, okay, you bought this item. You're probably going to dig this too. It's
Yep.
not just about throwing something in there. It's about making sure that it's like a cohesive unit, because I was always a fan of those packages. When you open them up, suddenly something just kind of spills out and you're
Hmm.
like, oh, whoa, free sticker, or
Yeah.
and when there's the band that I remember years ago, a friend of mine wrote to this guy in a band called Grief, and when he sent the letter back, he sent like 3 or 4 stickers with it. And it's like, wow, man, he gave him a free T-shirt, stickers, all of this cool stuff, and we immediately, pre-internet, found a way to find those bands, and still to this day, those bands are in our hit list of favorites
Right.
because of a random sticker. It's like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I
It's
always kind of think of that in the mail order packing side too. It's like you're doing someone a service by packing it safely, but the goods that are in there, the freebies, it's almost like the fist bump. Like, man, you're gonna dig this. Pow, take
yeah.
that.
I mean, it's the human connection element.
Yeah,
I think that's what's so rad about, you go into uh, a local record shop, or even if it's mail order, people can send me an email. They're like, who's going to answer? "Oh, I promise it's going to be me. This it's just
yeah,
me."
yeah.
um,
It's literally just me.
sometimes people will say something like, "Yeah, I talked to one guy and he said, and I'm like, yeah, that was me. It's always just me."
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but it's just cool. I mean, that's the element that's missing from big box retailers, or even bigger, smaller retailers, that are indie.
Yeah.
Um, Not gonna name drop or anything, because they're
Yeah.
cool too. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
the bigger little guys. So when you order from somebody that's small, um, it's just like it's got a bigger impact, and it's maybe a different level of connection. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely had like AFI as one of my all-time favorite bands, and in fact, I kind of blame AFI for getting me into this whole thing altogether, which we'll get to
Okay.
later, I'm sure. But AFI has been one of my favorite bands since 2003, like as Sing the Sorrow was coming out. And, when I had an order earlier today that was like 3 AFI records, and, they're somewhat um, difficult to track down, um, just in a broad scheme. And they ordered like 3 different ones. And I was like, this is my dude right here. And, threw
Yeah.
in some extra little AFI things because I'm just like, hey, we're homies. You know what I mean? Like I know we
Yeah.
connect on like a deep level,
Yeah.
and that note had to like flip over to the back. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't shut up about them.
Yeah.
So it's just it's cool.
Yeah, that I think it's great, man. I think that's I mean, it's how we all kind of get started in the routine anyway. You hang out with friends, you find out that you like a band and you want to share it with somebody. They like a band, they share it with you. At one point in time, there was you look at the record sleeve, you're watching what shirts the bands are wearing
Oh,
because
for
you want to
sure.
go find something later, and of course, where we're at now in this year and this time is, it's almost night and day from the way things are dealt with, but overall the general chemistry about what it is has never changed. It's that you feel an emotional connection to something, someone else feels an emotional connection to something, and you kind of meet in the middle, and
Hmm.
then it's like you're my new best friend, even if it's just over one band.
Yeah.
For example, one thing that we did early on in our friendship was talk about our favorite albums and how we like this band, but it's not the same album that we love.
Yeah.
And that always made me laugh, man. Every time there's some kind of social media interaction where we're talking about a band, the record that you choose as your favorite was not the one that I choose, but we still have the common ground because it's like we love
Yeah.
this band.
That's
So
right.
it makes it fun because even when I lose or I win, it doesn't matter because it's not changing my opinion on that. It's still not my favorite album by the band,
Right.
and I know you're laughing about it too. And that's just like the friendly, the rivalry, but not rivalry, so to
Yeah.
speak. So
I
yeah,
think we got to do another one of those too, because that was super fun.
yeah,
And
it was. Yeah.
maybe we'll do one in January. Go ahead and start thinking about bands
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I know we've got a lot of common ground. I know you're a musician too, and just kind of a lover of music in
Hmm.
general. I see the king
Yeah.
back there behind you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're pretty well-rounded guy as far as I'm aware, and I like to think of myself the same way, although I'm a little snootier than some well-rounded people. Because I remember, like, when I was in high school, for example, now that was
Yeah.
a long time ago. I've got kids in high school at this point, but
What year were you born, by the way, just for reference?
88.
88. Okay, so I'm a 77 model. So
Oh,
that's where
okay.
we're different. It's
Okay.
not too far
Okay.
off, but I mean that's, decade.
I
Anyway,
was
so
going to
go ahead.
say, well, what's kind of funny about that is I feel like I don't relate to like the current generation. And now, we had my oldest daughter when I was just knocking on 20 years old. So, like, I can relate to my kids and all the weird crap that they say all the time. Um, on a certain level, I love being like a young parent, but outside of whatever sphere of influence they have in my life with the specific things that they're interested in that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
I have no idea what the fuck kids are talking about these days, um,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
I felt that way growing up. Yeah, I felt that way my entire life.
Yeah.
Growing up a punk rock kid, I had no idea what Britney Spears was doing or whatever. You know what I mean? I had no
Nor
idea.
did you care.
Yeah, I did not keep up with
Yeah.
the Kardashians for one
Yeah.
moment. But I remember I used to and still continue to annoy the shit out of everyone all the time because I have no idea what they're talking about most of the time. I don't have a
Yeah.
TV. I've never owned one as an adult. Um, so I don't know anything about anything. Only stuff I've ever like watched is like with other people, and most of the time it's somewhat begrudgingly. Um, but like with music and stuff, I love, love, love music, and there's a lot of good stuff being made now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Um, and I'm not one of those guys to say like, oh, there's been nothing good since the '80s or whatever, because I mean, I was barely even part of the '80s. I really wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, but I remember when I was in high school, I I was gifted a just freaking awesome box set called No Thanks, the '70s Punk Rebellion. It's a 4 CD box set, and it had Dead Kennedys and Blondie and Sex Pistols and all the core stuff on there. And that just set me off forever because I feel like I didn't listen to anything pretty much my entire high school career past like I mean, with the exception of like early skate punk that I grew up on, like from the early '90s and stuff, with the exception of that kind of stuff, um, I didn't listen to anything more recent than like the '80s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody else is like, "What is that?"
Yeah. Well,
My
you kind of. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was gonna say. I mean, I went so far as to my senior project. There's always like this capstone project that everybody does. There's like, yeah, I guess you pass. Walk the stage and get out of our lives. Um, Mine was on. I can't remember the title of it. I feel like it was pretty poignant for an 18-year-old at the time, but it was about the birth of punk rock in the '70s. Like that's what my senior
Yeah.
project was on. So
Cool.
I've always been like this. I tell my kids
Yeah.
like I am literally just a 35-year-old, 15-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms of my
That's
interest, they have never
yeah.
changed a bit.
Yeah. I couldn't relate to that more. I mean, it's really how I feel. I don't know if if you had seen the it was kind of a sarcastic thing I mentioned online the other day. It's like I feel like I'm living in an Onion article or in a Hard Times article. It's like 46 or what was it, a kid in who loves music turns 46, thinks this year's going to turn it around.
Right.
It's like that's exactly how I feel. I'm just a kid in love with music, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what year I was born and what year it is now. I still feel that same kind of an urge to seek out and listen to, and the older classics, similar to what you're talking about. I always felt like I was listening back and like I had missed the generation that I should be part of. But I
Me too.
also have this infatuation with finding out what's going on right now.
Mm.
So I've kind of got a split on that. I can't say that I totally listen to what's only in the past. And that was one of my questions I was going to ask, was how often do you listen to your favorite artists, and how often do you seek out new music versus just sticking with the classics that you know and
Yeah.
love? Because there's no wrong way to enjoy music. First of all, that's something
Right.
that there's a quote from James Hetfield of Metallica. He's like, there's no wrong way to listen to music.
Right.
I couldn't love that quote more, because you see record collectors who complain about other people's stereos, or I can't believe you don't have this specific pressing, or why do you care about color variants, why do you care about black vinyl, why do you
Hmm.
care about whatever. All of that is irrelevant to the fact that what you get when you put a record on and you hear the music of any quality, it's no different than the emotion I get from a totally different record on a different sound system of a
Hmm.
different color with a gatefold, without a gatefold. It doesn't matter. It's that love of music. And my joke is always that the Misfits records are going to sound the same no matter what. They're never going to sound better. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Right.
great music.
Yeah.
It's just never going to sound great, but it sounds great to us because we're fans, And like you were talking about, skate rock and stuff like that. When I was a kid, somebody gifted me some cassettes. I was talking about this recently on a this little record challenge, which is secondary to this conversation. But I was talking about this friend finding out I was into music, one of my dad's friends, and giving me a Black Flag tape of the first 4 years. He
Yes.
gave me the Red Hot Chili Peppers self-titled and the
Mm.
Beastie Boys Pollywog Stew EP, all on cassette, all because he knew I was reading Thrasher magazine, but knew I didn't have access to that type of stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I got some stuff in the truck," and he handed me those,
Yeah.
and it just like totally changed my life. I knew now what I was reading, and I could relate to it audibly now. I
Hmm.
always knew I was wanting to get into this thing, but it was easier to find Guns N' Roses and that type of stuff at the
Hmm.
local malls or whatever
Yeah.
record stores we had. But the punk rock thing was a little bit more difficult at the time, because I'm talking about, goodness gracious, it wasn't even, it's probably 85, 86 I'm talking about. So
Right.
he's coming from the West Coast in the middle of all of what I would later grow to love. And he just kind of walked into the life for one day. It was like, here you go, take these, and just left them with me. And it totally changed the trajectory of everything. I was already into Black Sabbath and stuff like that, but
Oh yeah.
that was where it's like, okay, I feel like this is home.